ॐ
आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रम् अतो बलम् इन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदम् माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरते उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः अनन्तगुणपूर्णत्वादगम्याय सुरैरपि सर्वेष्टदात्रे देवानां नमो नारायणायते. So, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon for folks who have joined today for the second session of Keno Upanishad or Talavakara Upanishad Chintana. So, thank you very much for joining us today. So, before we get straight into the Upanishads, who are the rishis? Let's think about all the rishis of this great Upanishad: Chaturmukha Brahma, Sadashiva, Parvati, Talavakara Rishi, and all the acharyas who have given us the bhashyas of this amazing Upanishad. So the Devata, as we discussed last time, is Vishnu is the Devata for this Upanishad. And he's, of course, he's got infinite names. The other specific names that gives us a sense of the attributes of Paramatma are also celebrated in this Upanishad as Devata, which includes Hrishikesha, Kapila, Aniruddha Namaka Paramatma, and Gayatri Namaka Paramatma. The chandas for this Upanishad is Trishtup, Anushtup, and occasionally others. Okay, primarily it is Trishtup and Anushtup. So what is the situation? What is the background to this Upanishad? Vaijayante samasinam ekante chaturananam Vishnor vividishuhu tattvam pariyapruchata sadashivaha. So in Meru mountain, when Chaturmukha Brahma was in silent contemplation, Sadashiva approached him in Vaijayanta, which is one of the peaks of the Meru mountain. And to know about the Vishnu Tattva, he asked him a very important question. So, what is going on here? Shiva, Sadashiva, who is the fifth of the Vedic pantheon, is approaching Chaturmukha Brahma, who belongs to the Riju category of souls, who come under the third rank in the Vedic pantheon, and they are having a discussion of this Vishnu Tattva. Okay, and hence the Devata for this is Vishnu. Yeah. So the question that we were thinking about last time is, why did Sadashiva approach Vishnu, approach Chaturmukha Brahma? He is fifth in the Vedic pantheon. He is an Aproksha Jnani. He is highly exalted already. What was the need for him to go to Vaijayanta and approach Chaturmukha Brahma to ask a question? Yeah. Janan api umapatir vishesha jnana artam va jnatasya dhardya artam va loka anugraha artam va. So those are the three reasons that Raghavendra Tirtha gives in his Khandartha as to why Sadashiva approached Vishnu. One is to acquire special knowledge. Yes, Rudra is highly exalted, and we know that the Vedas are infinite, and Vedas have infinite meanings. The more you study the more Vedas, the more the greatness of Paramatma you understand. Our Acharyas tell us that at least there are three meanings to the Vedas, at least three, but that doesn't mean we stop at three. Vedas have infinite meanings. So every time you read one of the riks or the mantras of the Vedas, new meanings should come to you. Okay, so that is the mark of a rishi. And of course, the rishi for this Upanishad is Sadashiva himself. Rishi Jnane, the knowledgeable. So the knowledgeable, they keep contemplating on Brahma Tattva through the Vedas so that they constantly acquire special knowledge, new knowledge about this Brahma Tattva. So that is one reason. The other reason is Jnatasya Dhardya Artamva. Dhardya Artamva. Dhardya means to firm up your current knowledge. It's a revision. So have I got this right? Manana, that manana, getting things right, revising it with a guru, we should do. Yeah. So that is firming up current knowledge. That is the second reason why Sadashiva approaches Chaturmukha Brahma. Loka Anugraha Artamva. So this is for the benefit of you and me. Yeah. For you and me, this is a beneficial philosophy for us so that we can progress in our philosophical lives. So those are the three reasons that Raghavendra Tirtha gives in his Khandartha for this particular Upanishad. And that fits very well with regards to what we are going to be doing next. So we have understood why did Sadashiva approach Chaturmukha Brahma. And then he asked what? Okay. So there are 9 mantras in this particular chapter, Adhyaya. Okay. So the very first one that we are going to do today is Sadashiva goes to Chaturmukha and asks, Om Keneshitam Patati Preshitam Manaha Kena Pranaha Pratamaha Preiti Yuktaha Keneshitam Vacham Imam Vadanti Chakshushrothram Kavudevo Yunakti. So that is the question Shiva is asking Chaturmukha Brahma. Keneshitam, Kena Pranaha, Keneshitam, Chakshushrothram Kavu. So there are lots of questions here. Kena comes 3 times and Ka comes in the last verse. So it starts with a profound question that Rudra is asking Chaturmukha Brahma. Kena, what does Kena means? By what? How? Why? Whence? So those are some of the meanings of Kena. Okay. So popularly this Upanishad gets the name of Keno Upanishad because it starts with Kena Upanishad. So here is a quick quiz. There is another Upanishad which has got 18 verses which also goes by the name of the very first word of the Upanishad. So who is going to tell us what that Upanishad is? Quick quiz.
Isha.
Thank you very much, Sushilji. Perfect answer. Isha Upanishad. Isha Vasyang Idang Sarvam. So it goes by the name Isha. But of course, it's called Yagniya Mantro Upanishad is the correct name for it. Okay. So Kene Shitam. So many questions. Therefore, Kena Upanishad. Okay. So this is the basic question that Rudra is asking on our behalf. Okay. This is a profound question for all of us. What is this body? Why does it function like this? Who made it to function like this? Okay. So the idea there is we don't have to open a Vedic textbook to actually read this philosophy of Sanatana Dharma. We can actually look at our own body, and then ask that pertinent philosophical questions and then get the deep answers. So that is the whole idea of the first question. Look at yourself, do that self reflection, and then understand the deeper truths. So what is this body? Why does it function like this? What is this body is wholly medical, right? So we all agree how this body works is what for those of us who are of medical predisposition in this group, we have spent 5.5 years and we are still learning. Being a medic is a lifelong learning process. So we are still learning how this body works. So that is a purely a medical science to understand what is the physiology of this body and when things go wrong, what kind of disease processes happen and so on. So that is purely medical. But then the philosophical question is why? Okay, how is fine? How is for the mundane? Is the materialistic? No, material science is how, but the why of it is the philosophical aspect. Okay, and that is what Rudra is contemplating. That is what Rudra is asking. Why does this body function like this? Who made it to function like this? Okay, so that is the key questions there here that we need to understand. Once we get that question right, then the layers in which the answer is kind of designed is incredibly it's incredible, it's fantastic, the layers in which the philosophy progress in the first mantra. So hopefully over the next 50 minutes or so we can actually think about this, just synthesizing the biological evidence or argument for the existence of a supersensory force. Okay, this is beautiful. We all know that we can know about the supersensory force only through the Apaurushaya Vedas. That is a given. Okay, but if you look at your body itself, The Apaurusheya Veda talks about the sadhana sharira, and then it gives us some fundamental truths here, which we can appreciate in this very first mantra and the second rig. So what is it? So what's going on here in these four lines? Let's dissect this out completely. Okay, so it says Keneshitam patati preshitam manaha. So first it is talking about the mind. Kena pranaha, it is talking about the breath. Kene shitam vacham, it is talking about the speech. Chakshuhu shrotram. Chakshuhu we all know is eyes. Shrotram is ears. Okay, so we got five components that have come in this particular verse, which is in Trishtup Chandas. Burik Trishtup, as we saw it last session. So five: mind, breath, speech, eyes, and ears are being discussed in this particular mantra. Rudra is asking those questions. So why only these indriyas are taken up for discussion? So that itself becomes philosophically very, very interesting. So anybody wants to give us some ideas as to why this Upanishad might have just picked these indriyas? There are of course five karma indriyas and five jnana indriyas. There are 10 indriyas, but it has chosen to take five. So anybody wants to give their views as to why this has happened in this Upanishad? Why five?
Um, can I have a go?
Yeah, Devalji, go for it.
It's basically Rudra himself is also quite an exalted soul. So he's looking at the higher functions of the mind. And that is the external perception, isn't it?
Yeah.
Organs of external perception.
Yeah. Thank you, Devalji. Anybody else has additional views? Sushruth Nita?
So, for knowledge acquisition towards higher goals, we need these ears and speech, and then analyze these through the mind. And unless we are breathing, we won't be able to do any of that anyway. So, maybe.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
they're also station. They are in the head region, isn't it? Shiras.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, Netaji and Sushruth. Yeah, lots of, and thank you, Devalji, in very, very interesting contributions already. So yeah, one point. Let's think about this. Shri, as it's called, our gurus teachers. Look, all these indriyas, five, they are all in mind. Okay, there is a slight little twist there. The mind actually is not in the head, technically speaking, but the others, the nose, the eyes, and the speech and the hearing, that is a given. That is in the face. So that is one aspect to it. And then the other thing that Sushruth was mentioning about, these indriyas are required for our spiritual progress. Yes, I think Sushruji is right. So let's see. So there are several ways of looking at this. So let's look at the first approach to it. Okay. So if you look at the eyes and if you look at the ears, how do these indriyas work? There is a sensory object and the impulses go in. So this is an inward motion. So the eyes and the ears receive the external input from the external objects, and of course it goes into our nervous system, brain, and then mind, and then the soul perceives this. Yeah. So that is a purely inward. Look at the speech. Speech is purely outwards. Of course, in this mouth region, you also have the tongue, right? Tongue is also a jnana indriya because it perceives taste. But that is not what is being said here. What is being said here is the speech, vacham. Yeah, so that is an outward motion. Speech goes out. So there is the inward, there is the outwards. So these are the three that gives you in and out. And then you have the breath, which is interesting. Pranaha, if you think about pranaha, what is breath? Right in the middle of the face, which is the nose. The eyes, the ears, and the mouth are around it. So it is a central component of our face where air moves in and out. So you got in and out kind of motion. Then you have only in with your eyes and ears. Speech is primarily out. So these four are external. So they're primarily external things that's happening. Whereas the mind is the internal sense organs. Okay, so technically speaking, you got the external sense organs and the internal sense organs. So that's one way of looking at this as to why these five things are being described here to bring home the message. Look, our indriyas do lots of things, inwards and outwards stuff. So that's a very superficial way of looking at this, but it is an interesting way of looking at why these indriyas have been taken up. Now, as Sushruji very rightly pointed out, it probably, the list includes those that are essential for our spiritual progress. So these are the ones that, as Neetaji was mentioning, they are in the head, Shri as it's called. Yeah, we call ourselves a Shri Mati and Shri Man because we have these well-functioning indriyas in our face. Yeah, so these guys are there on the face for a particular reason, and that is to help for our spiritual progress, not to constantly be fixated on Netflix through our ears or through some Apple Music for our ears or to talk some nonsense in social parties. That is not the purpose that God has created it, but for a higher purpose, that is for spiritual progress. How does that happen? So let's think about this. So we got the vital breath right in the middle. We are breathing in and out. Then you have things around it: speech, ears, eyes, and mind. Why is it required for spiritual progress? Let's look at our famous Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Atmava are drashtavyaha, shrotavyo, mantavyo, nitidyasitavyaha maitreyi. So in this, if you look at this, all these will come into that picture. How does it happen? So here, Yajnavalkya tells Maitreyi, Atma, this Paramatma needs to be seen. If you want to see him, you have to have a process. What is that process? Shrotavya, Mantavya, Nididhyasitavya. So look at these examples here. Okay, let's look at this. Drashtavyaha, to see, eyes. Okay. Shrotavyaha, to listen. You don't listen into empty space. You listen only when somebody else is speaking. So speech and ears, they go together. So Shrotavya means pravachana should be there, swadhyaya should be there, and so on. So that Shrotavya covers the speech and the ears. Mantavyaha. So once we have learned, we have assimilated something, then what we do manana, we revise, we put it into our memory and then recall it and firm up our knowledge, etc. etc. It's the component of the mind. Okay. Nitidyasitavyaha, dhyana. Okay. If you think about dhyana, going into meditation, okay. When you go into meditation, what do? Krishna has told us so beautifully in the Dhyana Yoga that we have done recently. There is a process, right? You sit on a particular place, you sit erect, then you focus on your breathing. Number one, dharana, breathing in and out, pranayama. That you do. So the pranayama then leads to the dhyana, which has got various components, ultimately ending in samadhi. Yeah. So this whole process of Atmava are drashtavyaha, shrotavyo, mantavyo, nitidyasitavyaha, maitreyi, these components are essential. So these mind is essential, the breath is essential, eyes, ears, and speech are essential. So that is one of the reasons why our Rishi, Talavakara Rishi, has seen this mantra which describes these sense organs because they are important for our spiritual progress. So that is interesting. And what do we do? How does that spiritual progress happens? Pravachana, Medaya, Shrutena. We have just done this in Atharvana Upanishad. Pravachana, Medaya, Shruta. Students listening to the Guru and so on and get Paroksha Jnana. Then with divine grace, that becomes Aparoksha Jnana at some stage. When we do that, when we get that Aparoksha Jnana, we get this Darshana of Paramatma. Then of course, then we are assured of liberation. So that is the whole process. But these sense organs are absolutely essential for us. Okay. So anybody wants to recite or can they remember this mantra from Mundaka Upanishad that brought about Pravachana, Medaya and Shruta? Anybody wants to tell us that? Do you remember that mantra? What was it about? No worries. So, na ayamatma pravachanena labhyaha na medaya na bahuna shrutena. Remember that one. Yam yevesha vrunute tena labhyaha tasyaisha atma vipurunute tanun swam. One of the most important mantras of Mundaka Upanishad that talks about this pravachana, medana, memory and scholarship. Okay? But there is another interesting meaning that our gurus teach us as to why we have understood why these five have been picked. Okay, that we understood from the first reason, and the second reason we understood why these five have been picked up. Then the question is, why that order? Yeah, that itself is beautiful. That's what our gurus, that is why Guru Mukha is very important. When we open up a textbook, we never get these kind of ideas. But when we study the Upanishads through a Guru Mukha, you get all these inner philosophy and meanings, completely physiological and medical as humans. Yeah. Kedeshitam patati preshitam manaha. So the first one that is talked about is the mind. Kena pranaha pratamaha preiti yuktaha. The second one is the prana. Keneshitam vacham imam vadanti. The third one is the speech. The fourth is eyes. Fifth one is ears or hearing. So those are the five in that order: mind, breath, speech, eyes, and ears. And our rishis actually tell us the journey of life of humans, maybe also for some other higher animal species, but this is primarily for humans. We are the most evolved on earth, and we have what is called a sadhana sharira. So for our sadhana sharira, there is the inner secret that our rishis put in this mantra. What is that? After fertilization, you have the embryo and the baby is growing inside the womb. You have the fetus. We are told the fetus actually thinks. The fetus actually thinks in utero. What does this think? It thinks apparently about its previous lives that it's had, and it also thinks, oh, this is such an awful place that I'm inside this womb. When I come out of this womb, I should not come back into a womb again. Okay? I should find a solution. I should not come into this womb again. This is such a nasty place. But I look at all my previous births. So that is what it's thinking. The fetus thinks, says our rishis. And of course we all know, for if you're a feto maternal medicine kind of a person, you know that the brain development happens and there is an element of consciousness of the fetus thinks. And then at term, when the baby comes out, what is the first thing that it does? It takes the first breath at delivery. Previously, it used to receive the nutrients and the oxygen, everything from the mother through the umbilical cord, through the placenta, through the umbilical cord. When the baby comes out, the very first thing that it does is it takes the first breath. Pranaha pratamaha. If it doesn't take the first birth, then it's problematic, isn't it? That's why you have the neonatologists who are there in the labor suite to try and ensure that the baby takes the first breath. So that is the second one. Pranaha pratamaha. Once the baby has taken the first breath, what does it do? It gives the first cry, which is the speech at birth. Keneshitam vacham. Third, that is the cry at birth. And then what happens to this baby? Then it opens its eyes and looks at all people around in that labor suite, probably the mom, probably the dad. It looks and says, oh gosh, what is going on here? It opens its eyes and sees the external world. Chakshuhu. Okay. And then Shrotram. Then it starts hearing the external world. It reacts to the external world and so on. So we all have, most of us here have first-hand experience of how things are happening here. And that is exactly what our Talavakara Rishi captures this. This is the sequence of our appearance on the planet. Of course, there is this Panchagni Vidya that is discussed in the Upanishads about the journey of souls. And in that one journey is they fall down from the womb into the world. And this Talavakara Upanishad celebrates that by giving this sequence as to how that is happening. The fetus thinks, It takes the first breath, it does the first speech, then it opens its eyes, then it starts hearing the external world, and then it starts establishing a concept of the external world, and then it makes a career for itself. So the birth of the sadhana sharira is beautifully captured here in this verse. Our gurus inform us that this is the secret behind the sequence here. Then, of course, the philosophical question we have to ask, but before we go that, let's always think about other Upanishads. Katha Upanishad, of course, talks about this whole body equation, isn't it? So we have this body now, we have come out. What does Katha says? Atmanam ratinam viddhi, shariram ratamevatu, buddhim tu saratim viddhi, manaha pragraham yevacha, indriyani hayanahuhu vishayanteshu gocharan. So we should never forget this particular very important Katha Upanishad verse, which tells you the horses are the Indriyas, the mind is the rein, the intellect is the charioteer, this whole chariot is the body, this intellect is the charioteer, and then there is the soul that is sitting here. Prakashji.
Just have one question. Medically, does the fetus, when the infant is in the womb, will it think medically?
But there is a view that it thinks because it's got the brain, right? So the brain is growing, and the brain is grown. So if you think about, the at 20, 21 weeks, the baby is actually viable, and the brain is actually the number of brain cells is already established in the brain around that time. So if the brain is there and the neural connections are there, then there is no reason why the brain should not think. So we got a pediatrician here who will have a better answer. Neetaji.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say. I don't know any particular studies about that thinking aspect, but I see why not. I mean, babies do smile and do cry and other things, so they must be thinking.
So
Yeah.
also Neetaji, when you do this fetal ultrasound and stuff, people do they take images of the baby and they do all sorts of actions. They even say that the baby is smiling and all that they're able to do in this 3D images and so on. I presume that's true, right?
Yes, I mean that's the image. I'm not aware of any particular studies or any evidence as such. Don't know how to prove it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
mean, so there are lots of these things in our scriptures, isn't it? Inside the womb, somebody read the Vedas, and then they knew everything about it. So anybody wants to tell us who
what
that was?
about no,
But I was going to say, even like Abhimanyu, he heard about the Chakravyuha inside the womb. So, but in your previous slide, it said that you don't hear till you come out. But he obviously heard inside the womb, right?
from Narada Muni.
Possible.
Even
Devalji,
Prahalad has heard, right? Even
sorry,
in the womb.
Pratibhaji, do you want to?
No,
Sorry.
even Prahalad had heard it when in the womb, Narada Rishi had told him about Lord Narayana in his womb.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Deval? Sorry, Deval has gone. I thought she had raised.
Sorry,
Yeah.
my question was same about Abhimanyu and
Okay.
what Shashwat has just asked.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say
When
if
people play music, isn't it? It's supposed to sort of alter the kicks and things like that. So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Interesting. So anyway, so thanks, Prakash ji, for those interesting, eliciting interesting discussions here. So go with the flow here. So in the Katha Upanishad, we of course know this body is the chariot, the horses are the Indriyas, then you have the rein, which is the mind, then you have the charioteer, which is the intellect. Yeah, and then there is supposed to be the rider, the passenger who is directing, go here, go there, and all that. So that is one view of how this body functions. So Talavakara Upanishad comes from a slightly different angle, and it gives you the basis in which we have to understand the Bhagavad Gita, the Talavakara Upanishad, this verse, and we will navigate this as we go along. So the same Katha Upanishad also says, Paranchikani Vyatrinate Swayambhuhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Na Antaratman. And we have done this before. So if you look at many of our sense organs, they are primarily facing outwards. They are always interested in the external world. Yeah. Why? So who is going to answer this question? We have taken up these kind of issues for discussion. about why are these sense organs always facing externally. Anybody wants to contribute here?
That is the sixth step of evolution when Maya is introduced.
Okay, thank you, Devalji. So it's about this is an examination. So we are always facing externally. God has made so that all our indriyas are facing externally, so that we process the external world and make sense out of it, and that is our examination. And we eventually pass and then make the inward journey. You start off as an external journey and then make the internal journey. That is why he gives you this examination of facing Indriyas forwards. Paranchikani Vyatranata. Beautiful verse from Katha Upanishad. So, it's not out of context here. It's very much in context, because what is happening to the sense objects? Our sense organs that are facing externally, they can make a decision as to where they want to go. They can go outwards for temporary pleasures, what we call as prayers of Katha Upanishad, or they can go to scriptures, satsang, temples, or start making the inner journey, which is the shreyas. So folks make these decisions to do prayers and shreyas. Okay. Now, this is a deeper question of Keno Upanishad. This is a deeper level of philosophy that Rudra is asking Chaturmukha Brahma. What are those questions? Did we make our bodies? Okay, with all these fetus coming out, taking the breath, it's all very interesting. But did we make any of this? Did we have any decision, any role in making those decisions as to which womb did we go into? How are we going to develop? How do we come out, and so on? Did we make our bodies? Do we own any of these? It is there, we are just using it. Do we actually own any of this? Do we ask those questions? No, we don't. Our gurus remind us, we don't ask these questions. It is there, we abuse it. Some of us put it to good use, but most of the time we abuse what has been given to us. Did we make our bodies? No. Do we own any of these? No. How and why do they move towards their sense objects? Okay, this is a bit more of a deeper level of question. Why do they move towards the sense objects? Why has it been designed to be so? Okay. So those are the questions that Rudra is thinking. That is what he's got in his mind, if you like. And for our benefit, he wants us to think about these kind of issues of your daily lives. Did we make this body? Do we own any of this? How and why do they move towards their sense objects? Okay. With this background, let us kind of start tackling this particular verse. So what is the first line says? Keneshitam patati preshitam manaha. Okay, so we split it out. Manaha patati. Okay, manaha patati is the first idea there. The mind goes, which we are all very happy with. My mind constantly goes into various thoughts and it's wandering everywhere. Okay, and we know there are thousands of thoughts every day, isn't it? And it's constantly wandering. So patati means gachati, goes. It grasps various thoughts and engrossed in it. It is constantly doing this. Gachati. Okay, patati means gachati. The mind moves. The manaha patati. So this is Rudra himself, who is the abhimani of the mano, is a mano abhimani. He himself puts this question to Chaturmukha and says, see, manaha patati. Okay, gachati, goes, grasps. Patati also means slips or falls down. Okay, patati has two meanings. It goes or it slips. It slips more often for us, for mundane jivas like us. Our mind slips and falls down towards what? Towards prayers. The mind sometimes goes, it goes everywhere, but sometimes it also goes towards shreyas. So manaha patati. It goes to right direction, sometimes it goes to wrong direction of the Katha Upanishad. Okay. So that is the question there. Manaha patati. Kena ishitam preshitam. Okay. Kena ishitam. Ishitam means ishtam. Whose desire, whose wish does the mind move? Okay. Kena preshitam. Preshitam. Preritam. Whose command? Okay? On whose command the mind moves, and on whose desire or wish the mind moves, is the profound question that is being asked in Keno Upanishad, because this is what is the major source of suffering for us, because we are constantly moving towards various things that giving us sorrow and sometimes temporary happiness. Okay? We may think it is the soul that is directing. If you look at the Katha Upanishad, what did we say? This passenger is the person who directs the buddhi directs the mind then directs the sense organs. So you could say, is it the buddhi that directs the mind? Is it the soul that directs the buddhi which directs the mind? We need to ask these kind of questions. Are we really controlling our mind? If you take this Katha Upanishad equation, do we really control our mind? We all of us in this satsang, I'm sure you would agree with me. We are the witness to this fundamental truth that we do not control our mind. If we have a full control of our mind, we will never let our mind wander. We will never slip into nasty things that we think about in thinking in our lives. We would never do that, but still, most of the time, that is what we do, right? It wanders despite our best efforts. Why? So that is the question there. Manaha patati. Kena ishitam, kena preshitam. So this ishitam becomes very important in that philosophical question. Kena ishitam. Whose ishta? Whose desire? Because I am not able to control it. Whatever wish, I may have a wish to think this, but still the mind goes and takes its own direction. It just drags me into something else. Okay. Preshitam, again, there is some interesting etymology for preshitam. Prakrishta ishitam is also called preshitam. Prakrishta ishitam means shreyas, that higher desire to go towards shreyas. Then ishitam just means prayas. Okay. So why is the mind going like this? Okay. So this is the question in 634, isn't it? So who is going to, recite this very beautiful mantra for us? Gita 634. No problem. So shall I do this?
Chant it.
Okay, Neetaji, go for it. Thank you.
चञ्चलं हि मनः कृष्ण प्रमाथि बलवदृढं तस्याहं निग्रहं मन्ये वायोरिव सुदुष्करम्.
Thank you very much, Neetaji. So, yeah, Arjuna has asked this question. But Arjuna is what? Indra, right? Indra is rank number 8. And he is the head of all the Indriyas. He is the head of all the external sense organs. And he is the Abhimani of the hand that we know. Yeah. He himself says, oh, my mind is wavering everywhere. How can I sort this out? Yeah. And of course, Krishna then says, no, it is you have to practice and then you have to control and so on. So that is fine. But there is a deeper philosophy of the Upanishads as to how is that possible? Under whose prerana will you be able to control? That is the question. We are such dependent beings. Are we really capable of doing it? So, Neetaji, can I just ask you, in the subsequent verses, Krishna actually gives a solution, isn't it, as to how this mind can be controlled? So, do you want to share those ideas in the subsequent verses as to what Krishna has said in that chapter?
Yeah, he says, Sri Krishna, Chanchalam Himana Krishna. So he says that you have to vairagyena cha that abhyasena and vairagyena. So two things he says for us to do, and then to control the sense organs as well.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very much, Neetaji. Yes, so Krishna has given these solutions, but I think there is a deeper level of philosophy that we should be thinking about. That is what Kena Upanishad brings in here. Well, it's just, are we capable of doing this ourselves? Abhyasena tu kaunteya, vairagyena tu. Okay, Abhyasa and Vairagya. Can we do it ourselves? We are such dependent beings. Can we actually do the abhyasa of controlling our mind and develop the sense of vairagya and so on? So can we do this? So that is the question. Yeah, stay with me on this. I don't have an answer, but I'm just giving you those ideas of what Kena Upanishad is talking about, because that is why this is such a great Upanishad. It goes to the core problem of human existence and the mind. It goes to that. So yeah, chanchalam hi manaha That is exactly what here Talavakara Rishi has said. Keneshitam patati preshitam manaha. Okay. This is beautiful. The very next verse. Kena pranaha pratamaha preiti yuktaha. So prana, who is going to tell us what is the meaning of prana? Explain to please share your thoughts on what prana means for philosophical discussion. Not sitting around and closing and opening your nose. That is one, but there are also others, right? So who wants to share those ideas, please? So prana is what? Pra plus ana. Yeah. Ana means what? Anagatau, anacheshtayam, things that does a lot of activities. Prakrishta anacheshtayam is prana, that which prompts activities. Okay. So breathing is one of the most important activities of the body, right? Because if you don't breathe, you're dead. Okay. And again, for example, Bananji talks about this very, very beautifully in his discourses. He takes about the breath. One breath is 4 seconds. 15 breaths is 60 seconds. 900 breaths is in 60 minutes. 21,600 breaths is in 24 hours. In 1 year, we do, how much is this? 7.8 crores, something like that. And then in 100 years, it's 400,000 breaths. This is the number of breaths that we do per year in our life. The number of breaths is actually fixed at birth, says the Vedas. Yeah, it is not about how many years you live, but how many breaths you take is what is fixed at birth. From that pratama pranaha, from that first birth, the number of breaths you're going to have is fixed. You can choose to do it at 4 seconds. You can double it up and do pranayama, do it 8 seconds or 12 seconds or 10 seconds. You can do whatever you want, but your quota of breaths is fixed. Why? That is the question there. Breath, as we know, is mostly autonomic. We are never aware of our breath, but still we are alive. When we sleep is a classic example. We are hoping that we will wake up alive and that we will still be breathing. Why and how is this happening? Yeah. The medical folks may argue that the respiratory centers are in the midbrain, and it is those midbrain centers in the pons and the medulla that regulate the breathing by sensing neural inputs to the diaphragm for the muscles to contract and relax and so on. We may do all this, but then the question is, why has it been designed so? That is what the Vedic philosophy asks. Yeah, we as medics, we are good at explaining how it operates, but why is it so? Okay. First breath, we have just understood about this first breath at birth. That is one pratamaha pranaha. Pranaha pratamaha. But there is another important concept here called pratamaha pranaha. Pratamaha means the very first. Prana. Prana tattva. Mukhya prana. Okay. So that is what the philosophy is taking you is to talk about the Mukhya Prana, the very first. Behind any material thing, there is always the sentient being, isn't it? Abhimani vyapadeshastu visesha anugatibhyam. Never forget this. So the pratamaha pranaha there actually means Mukhya Prana, Vayu Tattva, Anila. Okay. Kena yuktaha. Kena pranaha pratamaha preiti yuktaha. Preiti means go forwards, advance, moves. Whose direction? Yuktaha, niyuktaha. Under whose direction or command this Mukhya Prana moves. Okay. Or this first breath happens. Or under whose command the number of breaths are fixed at birth. Why? Because we are mere spectators. We are using instruments provided to us. We did not make any of this. That is the philosophy of the human body. None of this that we have made it. We only abuse it once it's been given to us. So this prana becomes very important. We'll come back to that a few minutes from now. Keneshitam vacham imam vadanti. We talk nonsense all the time. How is that happening? Kena ishitam, among whose ishta? Okay. We may think it is the soul that desires to talk something, but we talk all sorts of rubbish also. Kene shitam vacham imam vadanti. The medics say that the brain, there are some centers in certain areas of the brain, Broca area, Wernicke's area. We talk about all this. Okay? And they send nervous inputs to our vocal cords. And around the vocal cords are the various muscles. And they coordinate how the vocal cords move and open and close. It's actually very interesting how a speech happens. If you're an ENT person, you will know how challenging it is for some disorders. But the very fact that we speak is itself amazing. It's a profound philosophy in speech. Why? Because your voice is created by air moving past the vocal cords in your throat. The cords themselves provide resistance to passing the air. But when the air pushes through, it causes them to vibrate. Okay. The gaps in the vocal cords are then sucked back together. This process occurs thousands of times per second to create that sound, that voice that we are talking in our satsang. So even that vacham, that speech is incredible. You may say it's all the nervous coordination, but the question is, why is it so? Who is regulating that? How did this happen? Okay, that is what the philosophers want us to think. Keneshitam vacham imam vadanti. So there are lots of other beauties here. It almost feels like it's a tautology, it's a repetition. Vacham is speech, vadanti is speech. Why vacham? Imam vadanti is given. So there is a higher level of philosophy which we'll pick up soon. Okay. Keneshitam vacham imam vadanti. Why does it work like this? Who made this? Then finally, the philosopher, the rishi is asking, Chakshuhu Shrotram Kavu Devo Yunakti. So the answer comes in the last word here. Kavu Devo Yunakti. So that itself tells you that Shiva is not an ignorant person. He's such an exalted being. He knows about the Deva, Eko Devaha of Shvetashvatar Upanishad. So his intention is not that he doesn't know. He wants to know more about the Deva. That is why he is approached Sadashiva, the Rudra. Chakshuhu Shrotram Kavu, our eyes and ears. Again, we say, we are told in brain there is the eyes, optic nerves, then there is the visual cortex. Again, in hearing, we are told there is the external ear, middle ear, inner ear, and then it goes to the auditory cortex, and that is why we do this. Okay, that is from a very mundane medical perspective. But why does it work like that? Who made it so? Why do we hear good and not good things? Why do we see good and not so good things? Why does it happen like this? So that is what our Rudra is asking Chaturmukha Brahma. Keneshitam patati preshitam manaha kena pranaha pratamaha preiti yuktaha keneshitam vacham imam vadanti chakshuhu shrotram kavudevo yunakti. You might say this is all a consequence of evolution. Okay, this is the most common answer that anybody would give who doesn't have that philosophical predisposition to life. Well, this is evolution from bacteria and from unicellular to multicellular. We have kind of evolved all these sensory organs to process and manipulate the external world so that we can put it to our good use and our species can continue to survive. Okay. So this is this Darwinism, isn't it? Is it all a consequence of evolution? Okay, so we need to understand what the second mantra is going to be, we need to dissect out the various ideas that our rishis want us to think. It is not that Darwinism was not there around the Vedic times. In Srimad Bhagavatam, as you know, there is this 9 stages of evolution that is also discussed. It's not that evolution is not discussed in our Shastras. Very much so it is discussed. But that evolution is slightly different from the Darwinism. And Darwinism, there are lots of issues, yeah, and people don't think it's a famous theory of the West, and we all accept this as axiomatic truth. No, there is lots of stuff that people are now beginning to re-question all this. Darwinism versus intelligent design. And we discussed it about 5 years ago, if you may recall, when we did this evolution. I just want to recollect these ideas. Darwinism. And what is this Darwinism telling about? Varieties can become species through breeding. Evolution is unguided and a natural process. Okay? Neo-Darwinism through random mutations. Okay? This is what brings about the species. Okay? And most people accept this as axiomatic truth. No, but it has been questioned. There are limitations to the Darwinian view of how species like the humans have evolved. Why? Survival of the fittest, but not the arrival of the fittest. Mendelian inheritance. Okay, this is very, very interesting. Mendelian inheritance is if you have a number of cards, shuffling cards, one can combine cards in a number of ways, but you cannot create new cards. If you have 54 cards and you shuffle, you don't create a 55th card. You can only have combinations within that card. The new card is the new species. So there is an issue around Mendelian inheritance. Even Neo-Darwinism, this is very, very interesting, very relevant to today's discussion. Why? There is a statistical impossibility of acquiring series of thousands of mutations to happen in a particular order to allow biological complexities, okay, such as evolution of eyes. For our eyes, which is such a complex organ for it to evolve, and if you take an eye of a crocodile, for example, and then you look at the eye of the human, there are so many things that should happen. That mutation, which is what the Neo-Darwinism is about, and they say it's a random mutation. But that has to happen in such a coordinated series that mathematicians tell that this is a statistical impossibility. It just cannot happen. Okay. Then there is all this archaeological evidence. Okay. Search for speciation, faked embryos, tree of life, fossil records. Cambrian explosion is interesting if you look at evolution. There was one phase called Cambrian phase where there was an explosion of life, and it just does not fit into the Darwinian view of evolution. Why? Lack of transition species. We do not see in between species. We say the monkeys and then we become humans. What is that in between? Okay. Or if you go to various other species, you don't see the transitional species. The biologists say that, the clotting pathway, when you have a cut in your finger and the blood clots, that series of reactions that needs to happen is so complex that evolution of that is beyond mathematical impossibility if you think this was a random event that this process has evolved. Okay. So these are all the arguments against Darwinism. Intelligent design. Who is going to tell us what is William Paley's argument? We discuss this very often in our forum. Who is going to tell us William Paley's watchmaker argument? William Paley, as we know, was a philosopher in the West. So William Paley was walking. There is a watch on the ground. He picked up the watch, opened it up, and there was intricate machinery in this watch. And then he decided this watch could not have been automatically made by itself. If it was a Darwinian stuff, that it is a natural process. Okay, a watch is not a natural process. Somebody made the watch. That is a beautiful William Paley's argument, and that is exactly, hundreds of years before, our Srimad Acharya said that Bahuchitra Jagat Bahuda Karanat Parashaktihi Ananta Gunaha Paramaha. Look at this external world. Look at your body. How intricate it is. Look at the varieties of the things outside in the universe. There are some folks that say that is an illusion and mithya. That is their sad problem. But for the realists like us who look at and enjoy the beauty of the natural world, you appreciate that this world is so beautiful. Bahuchitra Karanat, who made this? That person who must have made this infinite universe must be an infinite being with infinite gunas. We can understand that there is a supersensory force behind this universe by looking at the beauty of the universe. Okay? Bahuchitra Jagat, Bahuda Karanat, Parashaktihi, Ananta Gunaha Paramaha. Hundreds of years before William Paley's argument about the intelligent design of the universe. Okay, so why are we thinking about this? This is what this very first verse is leading us to. Okay, intelligent design of everything. It is not a random event. Okay. So, kene shitam patati preshitam manaha, kene shitam vacham imam vadanti, chakshuhu shrotram kavudevo yunakti. Whose direction are we going forwards? Under whose icha or command or control does the mind move towards the good objects or fall to bad ideas? Am I in command of my mind? Me as a soul, am I in command of my mind? We just need to ask this question ourselves for silent contemplation. Under whose icha or command or control, prana, the foremost of all, is prompted to do activities? Who directs people to speak the words mundane and the Vedas? Who directs the eyes and the ears to grasp the external world? Is the profound question of biology and philosophy and physiology that Rudra asks Chaturmukha Brahma. So, what are all the various views? We kind of thought about this. So, over the next 5-10 minutes, let's try and at least make some progress in this particular verse. What makes the sense organs move towards their sense objects? Do they move on their own accord? Materialistic view. Okay. Are they prompted by the soul? Very much possible. Are they prompted by the Abhimani Devatas of the various Indriyas? Possible. The highest among all the Abhimani Devatas is the Mukhya Prana or the Prana Tattva. Is it the prana that controls all the Tattva Abhimani Devatas? Who prompts? And there, we will come to that. Hopefully, we'll have those verses to discuss today. And Upanishads is full of various anecdotes, isn't it, of incidents that happens between various Tattva Abhimani Devatas and Mukhya Prana and establish how he is the controller of everything of the Indriyas. So that is what is Keneshitam. That is that question, isn't it? Pratamaha pranaha preiti yuktaha. Is it the prana that controls all the tattva abhimani devatas who prompts? Or are they all prompted by an entity that controls all of the above? So that is the question, and that is the philosophy that our Rudra is expecting us to contemplate when we look at the first mantra. So, they move on their own accord, materialistic view. Okay, so the eyes are there, eyes just see. Mind is there, mind just follows, processes the input. This is their nature. It is their dharma. They move on their own accord. Says the materialist. We all know the Charvaka view. The materialist view is it is their function. Okay, but there is a huge problem by taking that function. So in this equation of the body, this bodily ear, bodily eyes, bodily nose, bodily tongue, and the vocal cords, everything, they are all made of matter. Okay, can be no arguments on that. They are all made of matter, essentially jada. Okay. Insentient matter is what they are made of. Even the dead body has a ear, eyes, nose, and the tongue, but it doesn't hear, it doesn't see. Yeah, because it is dead. It is just a jada at that point. It is not inhabited by a sentient entity. It is just a jada or a matter. That is a primary argument which Brahma Sutra, our Veda Vyasa, in Rachanadikaranam, he establishes that very, very important sutra in my view. Rachana anupapatteshta na anumanam pravrutteshta payombavacche tatrapi vyatirekena avastite anapekshitva. That is saying the self-initiated activity is impossible for a non-sentient being, is what Veda Vyasa reminds us. Non-sentient being cannot have a coordinated self-initiated activity. That is the first point. Okay. Mind, if you look at the creation, you got Mula Prakriti, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, then Mahat, then Ahankara, Ahankara then becomes Vaikarika, Vaikarika then becomes Manas, then Tejasa, Indriya, Tamasa, and so on. They are all material. They are all made of matter. They are all jadas. Okay. Here we are talking about Manas, Vak, Shrotra, and Chakshus. They are all evolute of matter. How can they move on their own accord if they are material? That is refuted in Vedic philosophy, that the materialistic view of eyes move spontaneously, the mind moves spontaneously, just does not work. Okay? Mind does not think, eyes does not see, ears does not hear, organs of speech does not speak. We use these as instruments. Okay, this is a very important idea. We use these as instruments. We think through our mind. or brain. We see through our eyes. We speak through our vocal cords. We hear through our ears. The ears themselves don't hear. We hear. Okay, that is the difference that we need to be thinking about. So in that equation, the first argument cannot hold. Okay, we will do the second argument. There is some time to do the second argument, and then will close and pick this up in the next class. Is it the jiva, the sentient, that controls these sense organs? Possible, isn't it? If you look at that Katha Upanishad, you had this Sarathi is Atmanam Ratinam Vidhi is the very first. The soul is the passenger. Buddhi is the charioteer. Mind is the reins and the horse are the sense organs. So if you look at that equation again in a very superficial sense, it looks like it is the jiva that controls these sense organs. Does it? Our Rig Veda gives an answer already. We will finish off today's satsang with this verse from the Rig Veda. The Rig Veda answers this question that the souls do not control the sense organs independently. Okay. So this is interesting. If you look at the sixth mandala, Bharadwaja mandala, Bharadwaja Rishi, some of us may have Bharadwaja Gotra and all that. Yeah. Bahaspatyo Bharadwajaha, Vaishwanaro Agnihi, Trishtup. Interesting. This mantra is in Trishtup Upanishad. Trishtup Chandas. What does it say? Vime Karana Patayato, Vi Chakshur Vidam, Jyotir Ahur Hrudaya, Ahitam Yat. Jyotir Hrudaya Ahitam Yat. Vime Manascharati Duradihi, Kim Savid Vakshyami Kimunu Manishye. So beautiful, very similar to the Kedeshitam Patati Preshitam Manaha. Bharadwaja Rishi in the sixth mandala says this particular beautiful mantra which our acharyas gives us evidence as to why the jiva is not control of the sense organs. Vime karana patayato vichakshur vidam jyotir hrudayam ahitam yat vime manascharati duradihi kim savid vakshami kimunu manushye. My eyes have moved, my eyes too, the vision of light hovering from the heart, my mind which moves to great distance. What shall I say? What shall I understand? Why is my eyes going wherever I don't want the eyes to go and see nasty things, but still it does. I don't want my eyes to hear, but still it does. That is what Bharadwaja is seeing in this particular Rig Veda mantra. Okay. We are not controlled. Samane vrikshe purusho nimagnaha. Anishaya shochati mukhyamanaha Mundaka Upanishad. We have done this, right? This bird is in suffering because it is not able to control. Yeah, these two birds, the jiva is not able to control. If it was in total control, it will control its sense organs, right? But it is not. Samane priksho purusho nimagnaha anishaya shochati mukhyamana. So the jiva is totally dependent. Okay, we may think we can control the sense organs, but actually we don't. We don't have that capacity. Okay. So that is what the Rishi is asking us. Think about the deeper philosophies. There is something else going on here, mate. Think about this. Because the examples are given here. Bharadwaja gives a beautiful example. Yeah. As Neetaji recited, Chanchalam hi manaha Krishna pramadi balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. Okay. Then I got a typo here. Yada samharate cha ayam kurmo anganiva sarvashaha indriyani indriyartebhyaha tasya prajna pratishtita. You know this verse 58 of closing all those sense organs. Are we able to achieve this? Okay, can we? It's all there in the Gita, but are we able to do this? Why are we not able to do this? Why is our mind like chanchala? Why? Are we able to control this? Krishna wants us to control. But can we control this on our own, with our own efforts? Can we do this? Do we need something else? Okay. Because the jiva is totally dependent, is the again and again we are being told in the Upanishad. The jiva is there. The body is there. The mind is there. The sense organs are there. The external world is there. The sense organs are facing externally. But we are not able to control it. Although we want to, we are not able to. Why is that? Do sentience higher than the jivas control the indriyas? and the souls themselves is how the philosophy progresses. Okay, so that is the greatness of the first mantra. So we haven't moved on to the next level of discussion. So we'll pick it up in the next class. Prakashji.
No, nothing. It's just that the next sloka, Ita Samarthe, that is a typo, I think. 258.
Mm-hmm. Yes, go for it, Prakashji. Please rectify those typos. Yeah, the verses, the chapter is wrong. It's not Gita 634.
Yeah, no, I know it's a typo. That's right. It's 258.
258. Thank you very much. So it is 258. So the verse. So thank you, Prakash. Beautiful, beautiful. So that is the philosophy that Keno Upanishad is going to take us, because for the whole of the first Adhyaya, if we have understood the depth in which Rudra and Chaturmukha are having a conversation, the depth in which Talavakara Rishi is talking about this fundamental problem, and if we get that background right, the foundation right, then the 9 verses, the 8 verses that follow is beautiful, because this is what it's going to talk about the Indriyas, about the knowledge, about Paramatma, about Brahman, knowability of Brahman, unknowability of Brahman, and all the discussion, all circles, it kind of circulates around these kind of ideas about various sense organs, control, are we in control, and so on. Okay, so on that note, we'll close today's session. Krishna Pranamastu. So I'm going to stop sharing slides, and I'm just searching if we have anybody here who can share any other questions today. Any other questions that we have? If not, let me, as I said, there is a bucket loads of slides, so much to discuss in these 2 verses. It's just incredible philosophy that is being discussed. Yeah, Krishna Pranamastu, Hare Krishna. Any questions? We'll take it up now. If not,
Sure.
sorry, Neetaji, go for it.
No, just a question. Like the very first is like Manaha and then Prana, isn't it? But if you look at Tattva Mibhani, they were like Prana is above Shiva, isn't it? Vayu. So that's what I just wanted to know, whether that is due with the ranking, or is it just
Very
how
nice,
it is?
very interesting thought there. So here, the first line is not talking about the Vedic pantheon. I mean, it talks about the various Abhimani Devatas also, but not in the order in which they appear, but the way in which we see it from our material samsara point of view. So that is how it is in the first verse. But in the second verse, it's reversed a little bit. Shrotrasya shrotram, manasa mano, yad vachaha vacham, samupranasya pranaha. So there prana goes lost. Then fourth, then chakshushas chakshuhu atimuchya diraha pretya asmat lokad amruta bhavati. Okay. Then if you go to the third verse, look at the series there. Natatra chakshur gacchati navag gacchati no manaha na vidmaha na vijanimo yadetad anushishyad. Yeah. So if you look at the first 3 words, Neetaji, so the orders, they keep changing in every mantra. So our gurus tell us, look at the orders in which the mantras are also changed. And also look at the chandas also, how it changes, all those discussions that comes up. So to answer to that is, there is a lot of Taratamya philosophy in the first kanda. It talks about the Vedic pantheon. It talks about who is higher, who is lower, and all that. It's all over the place. It's written in this Adhyaya. Still, some folks conveniently want to ignore this. And some of us even make this as illusory or mithya. So that is the sad state of some folks. But it is all there here in talking about the various deities, various importance, various taratamya. Everything is there in this verse. But the verse per se does not give you that order according to the Taratamya. But we have to extract that with regards to the ideas that are being discussed in this Upanishad. Hope that makes sense, Neetaji. Thank you.
Namaskar, Madhusudanji. I was just thinking, even all the dasas songs and all, they try to tell this only. Like you have that, the famous Purandara song, Kailasha Vasha Gauri Shaisha. Manasu Kodu Hariyali. The Kannada song, they say, Manasu Kodu Hariyali. Give me the mind to think about the Lord. So you have Lord Shiva's and Lord to go get into it. To Lord Narayana, you need his grace also. Some of the songs, they do talk about this.
Very
Just
nice. Very, very beautifully put, Pratibhaji. Very nice song as well. Thanks for reminding that beautiful song. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, lots of ideas. But if it's a bit too dense and hardcore philosophy, that is what it is. That's the beauty of Keno Upanishad. That's why it's popular. That is, it's really hardcore philosophy for our contemplation. Once we get it, then what is it that Krishna is saying? Control your mind. How do you control your mind? You need to understand first what Kena Upanishad is saying. Even for controlling the mind, we need Krishna's grace. As Pratibhaji was mentioning, that is where it goes to. You need the grace of the Paramatma. You need the grace of the Abhimani Devatas. The Abhimani Devatas are not independent, but they also need the grace of Paramatma. He is Sarvakarta. He is Sarvajna. So he needs to help you make your, he needs to hold your hand and make everything happen. So that is what the philosophy of the Keno Upanishad is. And it, as you will see, Anyadeva tadviditat ato aviditat ati iti sushruma purvesham yenas tadvyachachakshire Tadeva Brahma Tvam Vidhi Na Idam Yadidam Upasate. So there are all these beautiful verses that talk about the philosophy of Vedanta. Na Idam Yadidam Upasate. Na Idam, you are not that. Okay, their lines are all so clear, but some folks want to twist and put in their own mastaka into the pustaka. That is their problem. But we will read this Upanishad as it is telling us. We will look at the pustaka and read it, not put our hypothesis and twist the words. Yeah, and these 9 verses are so foundational for Vedantic philosophy that it is really interesting to have those deeper levels discussion. So keep thinking about this, keep doing the manana of this. We will pick up the next argument about could this be Abhimani Devatas? Is that possible? I will make the journey slowly and then go to the second verse in about 2 or 3 satsangs. Okay. On that note, Hare Krishna. Take care, everyone. And one of the other things, let me just stop the recording. Please bear with